Hey guys, it's Billy and Bryce for Sports Club BCS Style. We're actually hitting the BCS games now. We're going to start with the Rose Bowl. Actually, I'm really excited about this game. Number one, because Wisconsin was the only team that beat us this season.
Yeah.
Number two, my sister's actually going to be marching in the parade this year and is actually going to be able to be out in Pasadena for the game, which is really impressive, and I'm really proud of you, kid. Moving on to the game now. Sorry. Wisconsin versus a one-loss Wisconsin team versus an undefeated TCU team. It's almost as if if TCU were actually in a BCS conference. It's almost like Auburn from 04?
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. And I think that's the reason they actually moved to the Big East for next year, so they can actually have an automatic qualifier. Wisconsin has a ridiculous rushing game. They've got 3 players that have over 850 yards rushing.
That's ridiculous, man.
And all 3 of them have 13 touchdowns rushing.
That's just
so you're talking 36 touchdowns between 3 players.
That's consistency. That's balance. It's so hard to stop that when you have you're going into this football season. You're thinking, how are we going to stop John Clay? How are we going to stop John Clay? He doesn't. You stop him. Guess what? They have 2 more running backs that are going to run over
with
you.
Monty Ball and with White too.
White, yeah.
He's been ridiculous. But the way you stop him, TCU's defense, they're 3rd in rushing D in the entire year, 1st in pass D. Granted, that it is a different conference, but
Georgia Tech would be 1st in defense if they played San Diego State and Alabama Tech every week. I mean, TCU plays nobody. They're not playing the Iowas, the Michigan States, the Ohio States, every single week in and week out of the Big Ten schedule.
But do you think this is going to be a trap game like it was for Oklahoma against Boise State a few years ago?
I do. I think it's a huge trap game for Wisconsin. You're going into this game. When you think of TCU, the first thing that pops in people's mind is undefeated team,
overrated,
no talent.
Especially down here in SEC country,
absolutely.
People are just completely terrified of this.
This is a complete trap game. We saw it with Virginia Tech and Boise State. Virginia Tech, by and large, at the beginning of this season, was a better team than Boise State.
Yep.
But one game, they have a month to prepare for it. It's not that day in, day out, daily grind of a normal BCS conference schedule. It's a real trap game, and you know what? I know TCU's favored, I think, by 3.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know who I'd pick on this. I have to lean kind of towards TCU. As much as it's kind of, throws off the way I'm thinking as big of a Big Ten fan I am, I think this is a huge trap game for Wisconsin.
Over the last 4 games of the season, Wisconsin was averaging 66 points. 66 points. That's why the over-under right now is at 59, guys, and I'm pretty sure it may go higher than that. I'm actually taking Wisconsin in this game. It's not the Big Ten bias. I just think Wisconsin's a much better team than TCU is, personally. We're going to move on to Stanford at Virginia Tech for the Orange Bowl. Ridiculous matchup because Virginia Tech is quite possibly one of the hottest teams in college football right now. They did lose the first 2 games against Boise State and James Madison, but they swept the table all the way through the ACC championship.
Very convincingly as well.
Yes,
yeah.
And Virginia Tech with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback, he's been ridiculous. He looked so much better than he did the first 2 weeks, and they're coming off a really big win against the ACC championship
This
game.
really is my, by and large, favorite BCS matchup other than the Ohio State matchup. You have Andrew Luck at Stanford, which most of the NFL scouts rank either
number
1
1
or 2. Yeah, right there with Ryan Mallett. He's terrific out there at Stanford. Harbaugh just came in, put in that pro style, and he's just adapted so well, and he's flourished in that. On the other side of the ball, you have Virginia Tech secondary, who I believe is either first or I know they're in the top 5 for interceptions per game and overall. Terrific secondary, really ball-hawking linebackers that put a ton of pressure on the quarterback. I am so excited to watch this matchup.
This is actually going to be really good because you look at the Harbaugh at this, and Harbaugh actually has a really pro-style offense like what Florida is going to bring into with next year's with Muschamp. But I really think that Andrew Luck, if he can actually do the dump-off passes, and because their athletes are ridiculous. Stanford's athletes, they're averaging 14. The second person is averaging 10.6 yards a carry or a catch,
That's ridiculous.
which is insane. Granted, their touchdowns aren't that that high, but they're still pretty dang good, guys. I'm actually going to take Stanford in this game. I really think that it's going to be a close game. I would probably, if you betting, I would probably take Virginia Tech just because the spread's 3, but I'm going to take Stanford to win the game.
I'm going to have to take Voltech on this one. That defense is on fire. The whole team is just on a roll. They've put the James Madison, they put the Boise State game behind it. They, came in and beat a really talented FSU team. I think Virginia Tech takes this one, but in a very, very close matchup.
We're going to hit the Sugar Bowl next, guys, and this is going to be in New Orleans, where Ohio State's had issues. Let's be honest. Yep. Being an Ohio State fan, like Bryce and I are, when you have to face an SEC team, you just kind of
cringe.
Yeah.
0-9.
It's not good for Ohio State. I think this is where it turns around. I really do. I think Ohio State's team is much better than Arkansas. I think their defense is going to be able to handle, because their secondary has been able to shut down practically everybody's quarterback this year. Most of the yards that Ohio State was giving up was against the rush, which they're still pretty solid against. But I really think Ohio State's going to be able to take this game, all bias aside, just being somebody who's watching the college football sports landscape progress. I think Ohio State's got this game. Ryan Mallett's going to have to find some way to get it past their secondary.
I think the big thing is putting pressure on Ryan Mallett. He's a big guy. He's a big Ben Roethlisberger type guy back there. You got to knock him around. You got to get in his face. You give him time to throw back there, he's going to pick you apart. I don't care how good your secondary is. Saying that, I tell you what the game depends on. Terrell Pryor. That's the whole thing. If Terrell Pryor can come out and play like he did against the Rose Bowl last year against Oregon, we will win this, no problem. If he comes out and plays like he did against Purdue last year and just, 3 interceptions, 2 fumbles, all over the place, doesn't know what to do, is very indecisive, we're going to get blown out of the water in this.
I think Terrell Pryor is actually going to have to do it on his arm, though, because his legs.
Absolutely.
Arkansas has done really well against the rush this season. Look at what they did against Alabama, which was really impressive. Like I said, I'm going to take Ohio State. The spread right now is 4. I'm going to take Ohio State to handle that.
If I was a betting man, I'd take Arkansas. But just as a pure pick, I'm taking Ohio State. I don't think they're going to cover that 4-point spread. It's going to be a high-scoring game. If Ryan Mallett gets to throwing the ball around, Terrell Pryor's going to be challenged, and he's going to get there throwing the ball around. And we can't forget, really, that Ryan Mallett and Terrell Pryor are pretty much playing for their pro lives right now. Mallett will be going to the NFL next year. Pryor has already verbally said he's coming back, but, that remains to be seen.
That's it for the second to last BCS show, guys. We're going to move on to the final 2 games of BCS National Championship and that ho-hum Oklahoma game. So we'll hit that here shortly. For Bryce, I'm Billy, and this has been Sports Love BCS Style.